Hello, hello, hello. I can't do music anymore before the stream because I get copyright stricken every single time I try to do a piece of music before this stream. So I gotta figure out how to do that. But how's it going, everyone? Check Discord for a French guide for this book. Okay, all right, all right. Oh no, is there a lot of French pronunciation in this? No. Uh oh. That's not gonna be good. My French is not good, guys. Hold on one sec. Oh, we changed the name. The Shadow of Madame la Guillotine. Guillotine. I don't know how to say that in French. Is there like a way to say that in French? Oh, nice. Thanks, Julie. Let me check. A little Google Doc. Ooh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you. Nice. This is gonna help me a ton because my French stinks. No, Meg, you didn't miss. You're right on time. Yeah, Julia, this is gonna be a huge help. Thank you. Just keep it for these chapters right now, and then we'll see if I really need it for later. Hey, what's up, Ormacine? This novel we chose because everyone said it was really fun. So I don't know anything about it. Also, my lighting today is all over the place. Daylight savings time really screwed up my lighting. We have this little thing, and then my other blinds are drawn. Usually it's a bit better lighting, but the sun is right there, right behind, and it would be terrible if that wasn't there. So, you know, we're gonna have to learn to live with me holding a ball of light right here. The power. Yeah, moment of silence for the ambience. Oh, you're missing the next hour or so? Come on, Nemo. Yeah, I think I just chose this book because it's fun. I think we needed a fun book. People say it's fun. About the French Revolution. I don't know the funness of guillotine, but maybe it'll be fun. So we needed something at least fun after Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is brutal. So we're probably gonna do this, and then I am 95% sure we're gonna do Dickens next. Probably A Tale of Two Cities next. I think that's the thing. Maybe we'll stick on the French Revolution and do The Tale of Two Cities next. So we'll see. And then I don't know what the world has for us after that. Yeah, we definitely need something brighter than Wuthering Heights because that was brutal. That was a book. That was rough. I don't know anything about this book either. I think this book was written in 1907 or something like that. I don't have any information on the back cover. It's just blank. This is a weird version. I think it's no, it's not a, is it a penguin version? Does this even have a publisher? I bought this on Amazon. What the? It doesn't even have publication information. Oh boy. We could be in for a world of hurt. Made in the United States, North Haven, Connecticut, March 3rd, 2026. This was probably someone who has a PDF of this and just made their own on Amazon. Interesting. Well, we're supporting that person who did this on Amazon. Can you do that with any book, any classic? Are they all public domain? Who holds the rights for that? Can I just make a really beautiful copy of any classic work of literature? Interesting. Huh. That's kind of cool. Maybe we'll become a publishing company soon. Haley, what's up? Yeah, this is going to be a nice palate cleanser after Wuthering Heights for sure. You can do it with Barnes and Noble also for like $3. Interesting. That's kind of cool. Published in 1905. Yeah, we can really mess with people and change the words. Every 10th word we change to something ridiculous. How are you guys though? How's everyone? I could figure out how to do music before the stream because it's really screwing me over. It'd be nice to just have something playing, but we can't because YouTube gets me. They get you. All right, we're going to start reading in 5-ish to 10-ish minutes. So everyone grab your book. Go get some coffee, not copy. Go get some coffee. Yeah, maybe I could do... No, the copyright-free stuff doesn't work still because it's on YouTube and they say it's copyright-free, but it's not. And I get flagged all the time for it. So that's annoying. Yeah, we could just have the sounds of Wes. Yes, green tea is acceptable. I'm not the biggest fan of green tea. I'd rather have black tea than green tea. And really, I'd rather have herbal tea than black tea. Or like, yeah. Not the biggest green tea fan, but it's still good. It's acceptable. It works. We could just have the sounds of Wes. I could just do a Wes cam before every stream. Honestly, that's probably the greatest idea we've had yet. Just have like a little camera following Wes. You could like put it. Have you seen those? There's a dog on, I think it's TikTok or somewhere on Instagram, who runs around, but he has like a camera. He's like a wide camera. He has like this little mouth thing. He just bites this, and the camera like goes right here, and he just hops around everywhere. And they take him on hikes, and he just is like hopping around. He's very cute. Well, yeah, there are places you can buy rights for a song for cheap. But yeah, maybe we'll do like a theme song for every book. Oh, it kind of work. I mean, I do have a subscription to to a site like that. But I tried to use that site before and I got flagged for it. And I tried to appeal the flag and they denied it. And it's even tough because, oh, and not any classic. It has to be public domain. Okay, interesting. Bonjour. Guys, my French is terrible. So you're going to have to just really bear with me for some of the French. My French ain't going to be good. I do read all the terms and conditions properly, but it still doesn't work. So we'll figure that out later. Agatha Christie is about to get PD. Anything's better than my Joseph. I don't ever want to read another word of Joseph's language or Joseph again. Oh, public domain. Oh, she's about to get public domain. Interesting. I thought she was older than that. I thought she was already public domain. So for public domain, is it literally just anything that's 100 years old? So anything from 2025? Wow, it's 2026. Yikes, that's scary. Anything from 2026 is free? Or 1926? $2,046. Interesting, okay. $70 years after the death of the author. Okay, that's interesting for the U.S. Does it have to be an American author, or is that just like any author has to die and then we wait 70 years? Is it different for other countries? The horror version of Winnie the Pooh. Any author. Interesting. Okay, good. Well, I love that. So the Scarlet Pimpernel, I think we're good. Actually, when did she die? Wait. Are we reading a non-copyright free book? Public domain book? When did she die? You said 1940 something? Do the math. I think we're good. I think that's 80 some years. I'm excited for this book because I need something light. I need something fun. And I hope this book is really light and fun. But we'll see. Maybe we'll do Winnie the Pooh soon. 1947. All right, so we're good. Ooh, yeah. Add to the children's book class. Amazons, Swallows, and Amazons. I've never even heard of that. By who? When did E.B. White die? Probably pretty recently. I would guess in the last 40 years. He died. Wow, I was right. 1985. Almost exactly. Dang. So, I mean, in a long time, we'll start doing some E.B. White books when I'm 70. Is this book a children's book? The Scarlet Pimpernel is not a children's book, correct? It's not a children's book. Okay. All right. Well, that's all right. You guys are very adamant. It is not. Alrighty. All right, guys. We're gonna get to reading. Sorry, I gotta check on one quick thing, and then we'll get to reading. All right, guys. Here we go. Welcome to the third book in our book club, The Scarlet Pimpernel. I'm kind of excited for this. I always get excited when we do a new book. This is a swashbuckling adventure. Excellent. Not with the amount of beheading going on. Yeesh. Okay. All right. Watch out for those heads. All right. Here we go. Chapter 1. Paris. Should I try to do everything with a really, really over-exaggerated French accent? Paris. How do you say September in French? You like the first chapter? Excellent. I don't know if I'm going to do that. That's too much. See you soon, Nemo. Audrey. Come on. First line, and then we'll go. There's lots of French words. So tombe. Guys, my French is terrible, so this is going to be brutal. All right, chapter 1. Paris, September 1792. A surging, seething, murmuring crowd of beings that are only human in name. A surging, seething, murmuring crowd of beings that are human only in name. For to the eye and the ear they seem naught but savage creatures, animated by vile passions, and by the lust of vengeance and of hate. Dang. The hour, some little time before sunset, and the place, the West Barricade, at the very spot where a decade later, a proud tyrant raised an undying monument to the nation's glory and his own vanity. This is very dramatic. During the greater part of the day, the guillotine had been kept busy at its ghastly work. All that France had boasted of in the past centuries, of ancient names and blue blood, had paid toll to her desire for liberty and for fraternity. The carnage had only ceased at this late hour of the day because there were other more interesting sights for people to witness. A little while before the final closing of the barricades for the night. And so the crowd rushed away from the place de la Greve, and made for various barricades in order to watch this interesting and amusing sight. It was to be seen every day. For those aristos were such fools. Aristos being aristocrats, I'm guessing. Aristos. Greve. Okay, Greve. The Place de la Greve. My French is going to be so bad in this book, guys. They were traitors to the people, of course. All of them. Men, women, and children. Who happened to be descendants of the great men who, since the Crusades, had made the glory of France her old noblesse. Nobility, I'm guessing. Their ancestors had oppressed the people, had crushed them under the scarlet heels of their dainty buckled shoes. And now the people had become the rulers of France and crushed their former masters. Not beneath their heel, for they went shoeless mostly in these days, but beneath a more effectual weight. A knife, the knife of the guillotine. A daily, hourly, and hideous instrument of torture claimed its many victims. Old men, young women, tiny children, even until the day when it would finally demand the head of a king and of a beautiful young queen. But this was as it should be. Were not the people now the rulers of France? Every aristocrat was a traitor, as his ancestors had been before him. For 200 years now the people had sweated and toiled and starved to keep a lustful court in lavish extravagance. Now the descendants of those who had helped to make those courts brilliant had to hide for their lives, to fly, if they wished to avoid the tardy vengeance of the people. And they did try to hide, and tried to fly. That was just the fun of the whole thing. Every afternoon before the gates closed and the market carts went out in procession by the various barricades, some fool of an aristo endeavored to evade the clutches of the Committee of Public Safety. The Committee of Public Safety, is this like a people-led organization? The Committee of Public Safety. I'm guessing this is from the people? There's Hamilton quotes for this. Yeah, there's this is gonna be an interesting book for the intersection of history. I love books like that. I always love going on deep dives. I honestly don't know a lot about the French Revolution. The revolutionaries manning the guillotine. Okay, interesting. The Committee of Public Safety. The ones manning the guillotine. Political HOA. Okay, excellent. In various disguises under various pretexts, they tried to slip through the barriers, which were so well guarded by citizen soldiers of the Republic. Men in women's clothes, women in men attire, children disguised in beggars' rags. There were some of them of all sorts. There's some weird punctuation in this. I've never seen 2 colons in a single sentence. Ci devant. What does that mean? Julie, thank you for yours. Pronounced ci devant. Oh, I kind of pronounced it right. Former. Okay. Former counts, marquises, even dukes who want to fly from France, reach England or some other equally accursed country, and there try to rouse foreign feelings against the glorious revolution, or to raise an army in order to liberate the wretched prisoners in the temple who had once called themselves sovereigns of France. But they were nearly always caught at the barricades. Sergeant Bibot, especially at the West Gate, had a wonderful nose for scenting an aristo, in the most perfect disguise. Then, of course, the fun began. Bibot would look at his prey, as a cat looks upon the mouse, play with him, sometimes for quite a quarter of an hour, pretend to be hoodwinked by the disguise, by the wigs and other bits of theatrical makeup, which hid the identity of a ci-devant, noble marquis or count. Oh, Bibot had a keen sense of humor. It was well worth hanging round that west barricade in order to see him catch an aristo in the very act of trying to flee from the vengeance of the people. Sometimes Bibot would let his prey actually out by the gates, allowing him to think for the space of 2 minutes, at least that he really had escaped out of Paris, and might even manage to reach the coast of England in safety. But Bibot would let the unfortunate wretch walk about 10 meters toward the open country. Then he would send 2 men after him and bring him back, stripped of his disguise. Oh, that was extremely funny. For as often as not, the fugitive would prove to be a woman, some proud marchioness. Marchioness? Marchioness. What's that? Just like a rich lady? They're not going to be a wife of a Mercury. Okay, thank you. They're not going to be favorable to the French Revolution. Honestly, it is really interesting. I don't really know much about the French Revolution. So this definitely doesn't seem favorably disposed to it. Seems like they're lavishing and they're like salivating at the idea of putting people at the guillotine. Huh. All right. Where are we? Who looked terribly comical when she found herself in Bibot's clutches, after all, and knew that a summary trial would await her the next day, and after that, the fond embrace of Madame la Guillotine. No wonder that on this fine afternoon in September, the crowd round Bibot's gate was eager and excited. The lust of blood grows with its satisfaction. There is no satiety. Why don't I know that word? Satisfaction? There is no satiety? Satiety? Man, there's some words in this. I feel like I'm dumb right now. Being satiated. Okay, thank you. The crowd had seen hundreds of noble heads fall beneath the guillotine today. It wanted to make sure that it would see another 100 fall on the morrow. Bibot was sitting on an overturned and empty cask close by the gate of the barricade. A small detachment of citoyen soldiers was under his command. This is citizen soldiers? Okay. The work had been very hot lately. Those accursed aristos were becoming terrified and tried their hardest to slip out of Paris. Men, women, and children, whose ancestors even in remote ages had served those traitorous Bourbons, were all traitors themselves, and ripe food for the guillotine. Every day Bibot had the satisfaction of unmasking some fugitive royalists and sending them back to be tried by the Committee of Public Safety, presided over by that good patriot, Citoyen Fouquier-Tinville. Pronunciation help. I probably will continue to botch this. Fouquier. How do we get a... What's the French here? Citoyen. Man, French spelling is weird. Citoyen? I'm getting multiple pronunciations from you guys. How do you pronounce this person's name? Fouquier? Tinville? I'm just going to go with that. I'm just going to roll with that. We'll keep botching it as we go. Oof. Robespierre and Danton Both had commended Bibot for his zeal, and Bibot was proud of the fact that he was on his own initiative, had sent at least 50 aristos to the guillotine. But today, all the sergeants in command at the various barricades had special orders. Recently, a very great number of aristos had succeeded in escaping out of France and reaching England safely. There were curious rumors about these escapes. They had become very frequent and singularly daring. The people's minds were becoming strangely excited about it all. Sergeant Grospierre had been sent to the guillotine for allowing a whole family of aristos to slip out of the north gate under his very nose. Oh, dang. That'd be stressful. It was asserted that these escapes were organized by a band of Englishmen, whose daring seemed to be unparalleled, and who, from sheer desire to meddle in what did not concern them, spent their spare time in snatching away lawful victims destined for Madame la Guillotine. These rumors soon grew in extravagance, and there was no doubt that this band of meddlesome Englishmen did exist. Moreover, they seemed to be under the leadership of a man whose pluck and audacity were almost fabulous. Strange stories were afloat of how he and these aristos, whom he rescued, became suddenly invisible as they reached the barricade and escaped out of the gates by sheer supernatural agency. No one had seen this mysterious Englishman, for, as for their leader, he was never spoken of save with a superstitious shudder. Citoyen Fauquier Tinville would in the course of the day receive a scrap of paper from some mysterious source. Sometimes he would find it in the pocket of his coat. At others, it would be handed to him by someone in the crowd, whilst he was away on his own, to the sitting of the Committee of Public Safety. The paper always contained a brief notice that the band of meddlesome Englishmen were at work, and it was always signed with a device drawn in red, a little star-shaped flower, which we in England call the Scarlet Pimpernel. Little title drop. Within a few hours of the receipt of this impudent notice, the citoyen of the Committee of Public Safety would hear that so many royalists and aristocrats had succeeded in reaching the coast and were on their way to England and safety. The guards at the gates had been doubled. The sergeants in command had been threatened with death, whilst liberal rewards were offered for the capture of these daring and impudent Englishmen. There was a sum of 5,000 francs promised to the man who laid hands on the mysterious and elusive Scarlet Pimpernel. Everyone felt that Bibot would be that man, and Bibot allowed that belief to take firm root in everybody's mind. And so day after day, people came to watch him at the West Gate, so as to be present when he laid hands on any fugitive aristo who might perhaps be accompanied by that mysterious Englishman. Bah, he said to his trusted corporal. Citoyen Grospierre was a fool. Had it been me now at that North Gate last week, Citoyen Bibot spat on the ground to express his contempt for his comrade's stupidity. How did it happen, Citoyen? Wait, let me make sure Citoyen. 2 yen. Is it 2 yen? Oh, there's a pronunciation guide right here. For Julie, thank you. Citoyen. Am I pronouncing it right? Citoyen. It's not citoyen. It's that comment is the same exact thing. It's not citoyen. It's citoyen. It doesn't do me any good. Stress on the last syllable. Citoyen. Okay. Citoyen. I'm probably still going to botch it, but we're going to go from there. We're just going to keep doing it. You guys are just going to have to live with my terrible pronunciations. because this is part of the journey. Leviosa, not Leviosa. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing. Sorry if it grates on your ears. Grospierre was at the gate, keeping a good watch, began Bibot pompously, as the crowd closed in round him, listening eagerly to his narrative. We've all heard this meddlesome Englishman, this accursed Scarlet Pimpernel. He won't get through my gate. Morbleu? My gate, Morbleu? Is that his gate? Maybe he's at like the blue gate or something? I don't know. A mild oath, roughly equivalent to zounds? I don't know what zounds means. All right, let's keep going. Unless he be the devil himself. But Grospierre was a fool. The market carts were going through the gates. There was one laden with casks, and driven by an old man with a boy beside him. Grospierre was a bit drunk, but he thought himself very clever. He looked into the casks, most of them at least, and saw they were empty, and let the carts go through. A murmur of wrath and contempt went round the groups of ill-clad wretches who crowded round Citoyen Bibot. Half an hour later, continued the sergeant, up comes a captain of the guard, with a squad of some dozen soldiers with him. Has a cart gone through, he asks of Grospierre breathlessly. Yes, says Grospierre. Not half an hour ago. And you have let them escape, shouts the captain furiously. You'll go to the guillotine for this, citoyen sergeant. That cart held concealed the ci-devant du Deschalys and his family. What? Thunders Grospierre aghast. Aye, and the driver was none other than that cursed Englishman, the Scarlet Pimpernel. A howl of execration greeted this tale. Citoyen Grospierre had paid for his blunder on the guillotine. But what a fool! Oh, what a fool! Bibot was laughing so much at his own tale that it was some time before he could continue. After them, my men, shouts the captain, he said after a while. Or after them, my men, shouts the captain, he said after a while. Remember the reward. After them, they cannot have gone far. And with that, he rushes through the gates, followed by his dozen soldiers. But it was too late, shouted the crowd excitedly. They never got them. Curse that Grospierre for his folly. He deserved his fate. Fancy not examining those casks properly. But these sallies seemed to amuse Citoyen Bibot exceedingly. He laughed until his sides ached, and the tears streamed down his cheeks. Nay, nay, he said at last. Those aristos were in the cart. The driver was not the Scarlet Pimpernel. What? No, the captain of the guard was that damned Englishman in disguise, and every one of his soldier aristos. The crowd this time said nothing. The story certainly savored of the supernatural, and though the Republic had abolished God, it had not quite succeeded in killing the fear of the supernatural in the hearts of the people. Truly that Englishman must be the devil himself. Interesting. So, give me some details on the French Revolution. Tell me, teach me about the French Revolution like I was in 5th grade. They had abolished God. So I'm guessing they're abolishing religion. You just believe in the French Revolution? Funky. People still hold on to that a little bit? They even changed to a 10-day calendar? That's kind of crazy. Wow. The people, this is a revolution for sure. So separation of church and state. They were mad at the Catholic Church and of the aristos. It was supposed to be guided by rationalism. I feel like it wasn't. This doesn't seem... I mean, like, this is a negative, probably, portrayal of it to some extent. Like it just seems like these people are bloodlusty. People were big mad. That's exactly what I needed. All right, good, perfect. Wow, they were trying to replace everything with a top-down solution. That's so interesting. Okay, crazy. The sun was sinking low down in the west. Bibot prepared himself to close the gates. En avant, the carts, he said. Search the carts? Oh, forward. Dang it. Forward the carts. Some dozen covered carts were drawn up in a row, ready to leave the town, in order to fetch the produce from the country close by for market the next morning. They were mostly well known to Bibot as they went through the gate twice every day on their way to and from the town. He spoke to one or two of their drivers, mostly women, and was at great pains to examine the inside of the carts. You never know, he would say. And I'm not going to be caught like that fool Grospierre. The women who drove the carts usually spent their days on the Place de la Grève, beneath the platform of the guillotine, knitting and gossiping, while they watched the rows of tumbrils arriving with the victims of the Reign of Terror that the Reign of Terror claimed every day. It was great fun to see the aristos arriving in the reception of Madame la Guillotine, and the places close by the platform were very much sought after. Dang. This is gruesome. It's crazy, the contrast here. They get good seats so they can knit and watch people get beheaded. Crazy. Humans are crazy sometimes. Bibot, during the day, had been on duty on the palace. He recognized most of the old hags, tricoteuses? I don't know what that means. So the bit about getting good seats is historically accurate. Crazy. We've all been there, done that, trying to get good seats for Really, A Tale of Two Cities is rough? Interesting, okay. Yeah, this feels like the French version of the Colosseum. What does this word mean? Tricoteuses, as they were called, who sat there and knitted, while head after head fell beneath the knife, and they themselves got quite bespattered with the blood of those cursed aristos. Dang. This is gruesome. Wow. Hey, la mère, said Bibot to one of those horrible hags. What have you got there? He had seen her earlier in the day, with her knitting and the whip of her cart close beside. Oh, it just means a knitter. Okay, thank you. Feminine people who wear the tricot. Knitters. Okay, thank you. Close beside. Now, she had fastened a row of curly locks to the whip handle. All colors, from gold to silver, fair to dark, and she stroked them with her huge bony fingers as she laughed at Bibot. I made friends with Madame Guillotine's lover, she said with a coarse laugh. He cut these off for me from the heads as they rolled down. He has promised me some more tomorrow, but I don't know if I shall be at my usual place. How is that, la mère? Asked Bibot, who, hardened soldier though he was, could not help shuddering at the awful loathsomeness of this semblance of a woman, with her ghastly trophy on the handle of her whip. My grandson has got the smallpox, she said with a jerk of her thumb toward the inside of the cart. Some say it's a plague. If it is, I shan't be allowed to come into Paris tomorrow. At the first mention of the word smallpox, Bibot had stepped hastily backwards, and when the old hag spoke of the plague, he retreated from her as fast as he could. Curse you, he muttered, whilst the whole crowd hastily avoided the cart, leaving it standing all alone in the midst of the place. The old hag laughed. Curse you, citoyen, for being a coward, she said. Bah, what a man to be afraid of sickness. Morbleu, the plague. Everyone was awestruck and silent, filled with horror for the loathsome malady, the one thing which still had the power to arouse terror and disgust in these savage, brutalized creatures. When did the plague take place? So what year are we currently in? What year are we currently in, and what year was the plague? Get out with you and your plague-stricken brood, shouted Bibot hoarsely. So we're in 1792. The plague starts... Set at the start. But yeah, I don't remember every word. I don't have a photographic memory, so... Several waves of the plague. Okay. Late 1700s in this novel. The plague was much earlier. Plague was like 1600s, right? Still deadly. Doesn't the plague still exist today? The Great Plague of Marseille, 1720. Interesting. Okay. All right. Interesting. Let's finish this chapter. And with another rough laugh and coarse jest, the old hag whipped up her lean nag and drove her cart out of the gate. This incident had spoilt the afternoon. The people were terrified of these two horrible curses, the two maladies which nothing could cure, and which were the precursors of an awful and lonely death. They hung about the barricades, silent and sullen for a while, eyeing one another suspiciously, avoiding each other as if by instinct, lest the plague lurked already in their midst. Presently, as in the case of Grospierre, the captain of the guard appeared suddenly, but he was known to Bibot, and there was no fear of his turning out to be a sly Englishman in disguise. A cart, he shouted breathlessly, even before he had reached the gates. What cart? Asked Bibot roughly. Driven by an old hag, a covered cart. There were a dozen. An old hag who said her son had the plague? Yes. You have not let them go. Morbleu, said Bibot, whose purple cheeks had suddenly become white with fear. The cart contained the ci-devant Comtesse de Tournay and her two children, all of them traitors and condemned to death. And their driver, muttered Bibot, as a superstitious shudder ran down his spine. Sacré tonnerre, said the captain. But it is feared that it was that accursed Englishman himself, the Scarlet Pimpernel. Dun, dun, dun. We got to do this every single time something crazy happens. The Scarlet Pimpernel. Okay. Comtesse is countless. Okay. Sacré. A mild oath. Holy thunder. These people are like Robin. Okay, so really quickly, because some of the names are evading me a little bit. Can we go over very briefly the names? So we have the Scarlet Pimpernel, who is an Englishman. Said to be an Englishman. Then we have Bibot, who is the People's Army, and he is a guardian at the gate. And he is known to be like particularly ruthless. He like plays with his food. What's the lady's name who's knitting? He's not important. Yeah, he's probably going to be executed for sure. Who you let him through? What other... What other character is in this? So far I got those two. What's the lady's name again? The knitting lady. Just the old ladies. Okay, excellent. So the little old lady knitters. All right, so we got. So okay, I'm not missing too much. I feel like I missed like 5 characters in that, but okay, I haven't met anyone plot important yet. Good. Okay, so that's just an intro. That's a fun little intro. This is the perfect example of making a prologue just chapter 1, and I'm okay with it. Doesn't make logical sense, but I don't mind it. Robespierre and Danton. Okay, excellent. I'll remember them. I'll try to remember them. Ooh, main characters are coming up in this next chapter. Okay. This is chapter 2. The Fisherman's Rest. I like this so far. It's a little gruesome. But so is the French Revolution, I guess. All right, let's read chapter 2. The Fisherman's Rest. In the kitchen, Sally was extremely busy. Saucepans and frying pans were standing in rows on the gigantic hearth. The huge stock pot stood in a corner, and the jack turned with slow deliberation. And presented alternately to the glow every side of a noble sirloin of beef. Weird sentence. The 2 little kitchen maids bustled around, eager to help, hot and panting, with cotton sleeves well tucked up above the dimpled elbow, and giggling over some private jokes of their own. Whenever Miss Sally's back was turned for a moment. And old Jemima, stolid in temper and solid in bulk, kept up a long and subdued grumble, while she stirred the stock pot methodically over the fire. "What ho, Sally!" came in a cheerful, if none too melodious accent from the coffee room close by. "Lud bless my soul!" exclaimed Sally, with a good-humored laugh. "What be they all wantin' now, I wonder?" "Beer, of course," grumbled Jemima. You don't expect Jimmy Pitkin to have done with one tankard, do ye?" So we got some Brits here. This is the English accent. Oh, I'm definitely gonna have more problems with the English accent than the French accent, for sure. You English people have some strange accents. "Mr. Harry, he looked uncommon thirsty too," simpered Martha, one of the little kitchen maids, and her beady black eyes twinkled as they met those of her companion, whereupon both started on a round of short and suppressed giggles. Sally looked cross for a moment, and thoughtfully rubbed her hands against her shapely hips. Her palms were itching, evidently to come into contact with Martha's rosy cheeks. But inherent good humor prevailed, and with a pout and shrug of the shoulders, she turned her attention to the fried potato. "What ho, Sally, hey Sally!" And a chorus of pewter mugs, tapped with impatient hands against the oak tables of the coffee room, accompanied the shouts, for mine host's buxom daughter." "Sally," shouted a more persistent voice, "are you going to be all right with that there beer? I do think father might get the beer for them," muttered Sally, as Jemima stolidly and without further comment took a couple of foam-crowned jugs from the shelf and began to fill a number of pewter tankards with some of that home-brewed ale for which the Fisherman's Rest had been famous since the days of King Charles. "He knows how busy we are in here." Fisherman's Rest is a beer? Fisherman's Rest is the pub. Okay. Which Fisherman's Rest have been famous for? Okay, that makes sense now. I feel like I'm missing stuff here. I feel discombobulated. So they just make their own beer. Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's why I have you guys with me. You guys help me out with this. Your father is too busy discussing politics with Mr. MC to worry himself about you in the kitchen, grumbled Jemima under her breath. Sally had gone to the small mirror which hung in a corner of the kitchen and was hastily smoothing her hair and setting her frilled cap at its most becoming angle over her dark curls. Then she took up the tankards by the candles, 3 in each strong brown hand, 3 in each strong brown hand, and laughing, grumbling, blushing, carried them through into the coffee room. The sentence structure of this book so far is really strange. I feel like I'm gonna get used to it, but the sentence structure is just weird. Just not typical, which is okay. I don't know if it's good or bad yet, but it's just atypical. It's a translation, so it makes sense, but still a little strange. There were certainly no sign of that bustle and activity which kept 4 women busy and hot in the glowing kitchen beyond. The coffee room of the Fisherman's Rest is a showplace now at the beginning of the 20th century. At the end of the 18th, in the year of grace 1792, it had not yet gained the notoriety and importance which 100 additional years in the craze of age have had since bestowed upon it. Yet it was an old place, even then, for the oak rafters and beams were already black with age, as were the paneled seats, with their tall backs and the long polished tables between, on which innumerable pewter tankards had left a fantastic pattern of many-sized rings. In the leaded window, high up, a row of pots of scarlet geraniums and blue larkspur gave the bright note of color against the dull background of the oak. That Mr. Jellyband, landlord of the Fisherman's Rest at Dover, was a prosperous man, was of course clear to the most casual observer. The pewter on the fine old dressers, the brass above the gigantic hearth shone like silver and gold. The red-tiled floor was as brilliant as the scarlet geranium on the window-sill. This meant that his servants were good and plentiful. That the custom was constant, and of that order which necessitated the keeping up of the coffee room to a high standard of elegance and order. As Sally came in, laughing through her frowns and displaying a row of dazzling white teeth, she was greeted with shouts and chorus of applause. "Why, here's Sally! What ho, Sally! Hurrah for pretty Sally!" "I thought you'd grown deaf in that kitchen of yours," muttered Jimmy Pickin, as he passed the back of his hand across his very dry lips. All right, laughed Sally, as she deposited the freshly filled tankards upon the table. "Why, what a 'urry, to be sure. And your grandmother a-dying, and you waiting to see the poor soul afore shim gone? I never seed such a mighty Russian." A chorus of good-humored laughter greeted this witticism, which gave the company there present food for many jokes for some considerable time. Sally now seemed in less of a hurry to get back to her pots and pans. A young man with fair curly hair and eager bright blue eyes was engaging most of her attention and the whole of her time, whilst broad witticisms anent Jimmy Pitkin's fictitious grandmother flew from mouth to mouth, mixed with heavy puffs of pungent tobacco smoke. Facing his hearth, his legs wide apart, a long clay pipe in his mouth, stood mine host himself, worthy Mr. Jellyband, lord of the Fisherman's Rest, as his father had been before him, aye, and his grandfather and great-grandfather too, for that matter. Portly in build, jovial in countenance, somewhat bald of pate. Mr. Jellyband was indeed a typical rural John Bull of those days. The days when our prejudiced insularity was at its height, when to an Englishman, be he lord, yeoman, or peasant, the whole of the continent of Europe was a den of immorality, and the rest of the world an unexploited land of savages and cannibals. What does it mean to be a typical rural John Bull? Is that like just a, yeah, what does that mean? I'm guessing that's just like an expression of like, if you say you're like a regular like John Doe or whatever. I don't know. I'm guessing that's what it is. You're like a little Joe Bunyan out there. John Bunyan out there. Yeah, the mixes of present and past tense narration is throwing me off a little bit. There's the narrator's voice and the switches back and forth with dialogue is strange. John Bull is an English stereotype. A nickname for an Englishman. Okay. Oh, England's Uncle Sam. Okay, excellent. Okay, good. Good to know. There he stood, mine worthy host, firm and well set up on his limbs, smoking his long churchwarden, and caring nothing for nobody at home, and despising everybody abroad. He wore the typical scarlet waistcoat with shiny brass buttons, the corduroy breeches, the gray worsted stockings and smart buckled shoes that characterize every self-respecting innkeeper in Great Britain in these days. And while pretty, motherless Sally had need of 4 pairs of brown hands to do all the work that fell on her shapely shoulders. Worthy Jellyband discussed the affairs of nations with his most privileged guests. The coffee room, indeed, lighted by 2 well-polished lamps, which hung from the raftered ceiling, looked cheerful and cozy in the extreme, though the dense cloud of tobacco smoke that hung about in every corner. The faces of Mr. Jellyband's customers appeared red and pleasant to look at, and on good terms with themselves. Their host and all the world from every side of the room. Loud guffaws accompanied pleasant, if not highly intellectual, conversation, while Sally's repeated giggles testified to the good use of Mr. Harry Waite was making of the short time he seemed inclined to spare him. Man, long sentences in this. You have to like really focus on these sentences. There's like asides to every single sentence. They were mostly fisher folk who patronized Mr. Jellyband's coffee room. But fishermen are known to be very thirsty people. The salt which they breathe in when they are on the sea accounts for their parched throats when on shore. But the Fisherman's Rest was something more than a rendezvous for these humble folk. The London and Dover coach started from the hostel daily, and passengers who had come across the channel and those who started for the grand tour all became acquainted with Mr. Jellyband, his French wines, and his home-brewed ales. It was toward the close of September 1792 that the weather, which had been brilliant and hot throughout the month, had suddenly broken up. For 2 days, torrents of rain had deluged the south of England, doing its level best to ruin what chances the apples and pears and late plums had of becoming really fine, self-respecting fruit. Even now it was beating against the leaden windows and tumbling down the chimney, making a cheerful wood fire sizzle in the hearth. "Lud, did you ever see such a wet September, Mr. Jellyband?" asked Mr. Hempseed. He sat on the seat inside the hearth. Did Mr. Hempstead? He sat in one of the seats inside the hearth, did Mr. Hempstead, for he was an authority and an important personage, not only at the Fisherman's Rest, where Mr. Jellyband was always made special selection of him as a foil for political arguments, but throughout the neighborhood, where his learning and notably his knowledge of the Scriptures was held in the most profound awe and respect, with one hand buried in the capacious pockets of his corduroys underneath his elaborately worked, well-worn smock, and the other holding his long clay pipe. Mr. Hempseed sat down there, looking dejectedly across the room at the rivulets of moisture which trickled down the window panes. "No," replied Mr. Jellyband sententiously. "I don't know, Mr. M said, as I ever did, and I've been in these parts nigh on 60 years. You wouldn't recollect the first 3 years of them 60, Mr. Jellyband, quietly interposed Mr. Hempstead. I don't know as I ever seed an infant take much note of the weather. Leastwise, not in these parts. And I've lived here nigh on 75 years, Mr. Jellyband." The superiority of this wisdom was so incontestable that for the moment Mr. Jellyband was not ready with his usual flow of argument. "It do seem more like April than September, don't it?" continued Mr. Hempseed dolefully, as a shower of raindrops fell with a sizzle upon the fire. "Aye, that it do," assented the worthy host. "But then what can you expect, Mr. Empstead says, with sich a government as we've got?" Mr. Hempseed took his head with an infinity of wisdom, tempered by deeply rooted mistrust of the British climate and the British government. "I didn't expect nothing, Mr. Jellyband," he said. "Poor folk like us of no account up there in London, I know that. And it's not often I do complain, but when it comes to such weather in September, and all me fruits are rotten and dying like the Gupchian mother's firstborn, and doing no more good than they did poor dears, save to a lot of Jews, peddlers, sich with oranges, and sich like foreign ungodly fruit, which nobody'd buy if English apples and pears was nicely swelled, as the scriptures say." "What? That's quite right, Mr. Empseed," retorted Jellyband. "And as I says, what can you expect? There's all of them French devils over the channel yonder, a murdering their king and nobility, and Mr. Pitt and Mr. Fox and Mr. Burke a fighting and wrangling between them. If we Englishmen should low them to go out there in their ungodly way, let 'em murder," says Mr. Pitt. "Stop 'em," says Mr. Burke. "And let 'em murder," says I, "and be damned to 'em," said Mr. Hempseed, emphatically, for he had but little liking for his friend Jellyband's political arguments, wherein he always got out of his depth, and had but little chance for displaying those pearls of wisdom which had earned him so high a reputation in the neighborhood and so many free tankards of ale at the Fisherman's Rest. "Let 'em murder," he repeated again. "But don't let's have such rain in September, for that is again the law of Scripture, which says, 'Lud, Mr. Airy, 'ow you made me jump.'" It was unfortunate for Sally and her flirtation that this remark of hers should have occurred at the precise moment when Mr. Hempseed was collecting his breath, in order to deliver himself one of those scriptural utterances which had made him famous. For if it brought down upon her pretty head the full blood of her father's wrath. "Now then, Sally, me girl, now then," he said, trying to force a frown upon his good-humored face. "Stop that fooling with them young jackanapes, and get on with the work." "There's work getting on all right, father." But Mr. Jellyband was peremptory. He had other views for his buxom daughter, his only child, who would in God's good time become the owner of the Fisherman's Rest, than to see her married to one of these young fellows who earned but a precarious livelihood with their knit. Yeah, I actually think the political chat is interesting. What do you do in this situation? Let them die? Or hope that they stop? "Did ye hear me speak, me girl?" he said in that quiet tone, which no one inside the inn dared to disobey. "Get on with my Lord Tony's supper, for If it ain't the best we can do, and ye not satisfied, see what you'll get, that's all. Reluctantly, Sally obeyed. Is you expectin' special guests then tonight, Mr. Jellyband? Asked Jimmy Pitkin, in a loyal attempt to divert his host's attention from the circumstances connected with Sally's exit from the room. Aye, that I be, replied Jellyband. Friends of my Lord Tony hisself, dukes and duchesses from all over the water yonder, whom the young lord and his friends, Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, and other noblemen have helped out in the clutches of them murdering devils. But this is too much for Mr. Hempseed's querulous philosophy. Lud, he said, what they do that for, I wonder. I don't hold not with interfering in other ways, as the scripture says. I love that he keeps saying as the scripture says, and he gets cut off. Maybe, Mr. Hempseed, interrupted Jellyband with biting sarcasm, as you're a personal friend of Mr. Pitt. And as you say along with Mr. Fox, let him murder, says you. Pardon me, Mr. Jellyband, feebly protested Mr. Hempseed. I don't know as I ever did. But Mr. Jellyband had at last succeeded in getting upon his favorite hobby horse, and had no intention of dismounting in any hurry. Or maybe you've made friends with some of them French chaps, who they don't say, have come over here a purpose to make us Englishmen agree with their murdering ways. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Jellyband, suggested Mr. Hempseed. All I know is, loudly asserted mine host, that there was my friend Peppercorn, who owns the blue-faced boar, and as true and loyal an Englishman as you'd see in the land. And now look at him. He made friends with some of them frog-eaters, obnob with some of them, just as if they was Englishmen, and not just a lot of immortals, God-forsaken Furin spies. Well, and what's happened? Peppercorn, he now ups and talks of revolutions and liberty, and down with the aristocrats, just like Mr. Hempseed over here. Pardon me, Mr. Jellyband, again interposed Mr. Hempseed feebly. I don't know as I ever did. Mr. Jellyband had appealed to the company in general, who were listening awestruck with open mouth at recital of Mr. Peppercorn's defalcations. At one table, two customers, gentlemen apparently by their clothes, had pushed aside their half-finished games of dominoes, and had been listening for some time, and evidently with much amusement as Mr. Jellyband's international opinions. One of them now, with a quiet sarcastic smile still lurking around the corner of his mobile mouth, turned toward the center of the room where Mr. Jellyband was standing. You seem to think, mine host, my honest friend, he said quietly, that these Frenchmen, spies, I think you call them, are mighty clever fellows to have made mincemeat so as to speak of your friend Mr. Peppercorn's opinion. How did they accomplish that, think you? Lud, sir. Sir, I suppose they talked him over. Those Frenchies. I've heard it said I've got the gift of gab, as Mr. Hempseed here will tell you how it is that they just twist some people round their little fingers like. Indeed. And is that so, Mr. Hempseed? Inquired the stranger politely. Nay, sir, replied Mr. Hempseed, much irritated. I don't know as I can give you the information as you require. Faith, then, said the stranger, let us hope, my worthy host, that these clever spies will not succeed in upsetting your extremely loyal opinions. But that was too much for Mr. Jellyband's pleasant equanimity. He burst into an uproarious fit of laughter, which was soon echoed by those who happened to be in his debt. Ha ha ha, ho ho, he he he. He laughed in every key. Did my worthy host, and laughed until his sides ached and his eyes streamed. At me, hark at that. Did ye hear him say that he be upset in my opinions, eh? Lud, love you, sir, but you do say some queer things. Well, Mr. Jellyband, said Mr. Hempseed sententiously, you know what the scriptures say. Let him who stands take heed lest he fall. Hey, finally he was able to get out some scripture. But then, harkye, Mr. Hempseed retorted Jellyband, holding his sides with laughter. The scriptures didn't know me. Why, I wouldn't so much as drink a glass of ale with one of them murdering Frenchmen, and nothing make me change my opinions. Why, I've heard it said that them frog-eaters can't even speak the king's English, so of course, if any of them tried to speak their god-forsaken lingo to me, why, I should spot them directly, see, and forewarned as forearmed, as the saying goes. Aye, my best friend, assented the stranger cheerfully. I see that you are much too sharp, and a match for any 20 Frenchmen. And here's to your very good health, my worthy host, if you'll do me the honor to finish this bottle of mine with me. I'm sure you're very polite, said Mr. Jellyband, wiping his eyes, which will be streaming with the abundance of his laughter, and I don't mind if I do. The stranger poured out a couple of tankards full of wine, and having offered one to my host, he took the other himself. Loyal Englishmen as we all are, he said, whilst the same humorous smile played round the corner of his thin lips. Loyal as we are, we must admit that this is at least one good thing which comes down to us from France. Aye, well, none of us deny that, sir, assented mine host. And here's to the best landlord in England, our worthy host, Mr. Jellyband, said the stranger in a loud tone of voice. Hip, hip, hurrah, retorted the whole company present. Then there was a loud clapping of hands, and mugs and tankards made a rattling music upon the tables to the accompaniment of loud laughter at nothing in particular, and of Mr. Jellyband's muttered exclamations. Just fancy me being talked over by any god-forsaken foreigner. What? Love you, sir, but you do say some queer things. To which obvious fact the stranger heartily assented. It was certainly a preposterous assertion, or a preposterous suggestion, that anyone could ever upset Mr. Jellyband's firmly rooted opinion that anent the utter worthlessness of the inhabitants of the whole continent of Europe. Okay, so Mr. Jellyband just doesn't like the French. These are translations, but out of the three that we've read so far, this is my least favorite writing-wise. Maybe it's because I'm reading it out loud, but I'm struggling. And it's like, I mean, it's dialects, but it's not as bad as Joseph's dialects. But there's not necessarily like an elegance to this translation, I feel like. This isn't a translation, it was written in English. Interesting, okay. So maybe I just don't like this book that much so far. I feel like I'm struggling through this a little bit. Like I'm not the sentence structure is just different right now, and I just haven't gotten used to it. So maybe when I get used to it, I'll like it more. But it's strange. Yeah, it's true. They have been at war with the English. So there's a reason for that. Yeah, that makes sense. How long was the French-English War? I'm sure there was a bunch of them, but... Yeah, what is the author's first language? Baroness Orczy. Or is it Orczy? Yeah, they've always been at odds. Poor guys. Okay, so we have Mr. Jellyband. Mr. Jellyband owns the Fisherman's Rest. His daughter, Sally, is about to own Fisherman's Rest. And then we have Mr. Hempseed, who knows someone who became a revolutionary. Hungarian is her first language? Interesting. The 7-year war lasted 7 years. What? You're on the side of the murdering Frenchies? No way. Wow. All right. I like it. Yeah, I don't know what to think. It's just strange conversation, strange sentence structure so far. It's all right. It's all right so far. We'll keep reading, obviously. This is chapter 3, called The Refugees. We got 2 more chapters. 2 more chapters. We're getting there. About 10 more pages. Chapter 3. The Refugees. Oh, one sec. All right, here we go. Feeling in every part of England certainly ran very high at this time against the French and their doings. Smugglers and legitimate traders between the French and the English coasts brought snatches of news from over the water, which made every honest Englishman's blood boil, and made him long to have a good go at those murderers, who had imprisoned their king and all his family, subjected the queen and the royal children to every species of indignity, and were even now loudly demanding the blood of the whole Bourbon family and every one of its adherents. Hold on. The French had the English king? Am I misreading that? The ruling dynasty of France. Okay, the Bourbon family is the ruling dynasty of France. So they're making every Englishman's blood boil at those murderers who had imprisoned their king and all his family. Which king? What am I missing here? They've imprisoned the French king. That's a weird. So this is what I'm talking about with weird sentence structure. So again, smugglers and legitimate traders. Maybe I just need to know history better. Smugglers and legitimate traders between the French and English coasts brought snatches of news from over the water, which made every honest Englishman's blood boil and made him long to give a good go at those murderers who had imprisoned their king and all his family. Like the there makes it seem like it's talking about the English. Weird pronoun agreement here. Yeah, I guess the author's assuming we know stuff, and I don't really know stuff about the French Revolution, so so there you go. The execution of the Princess de Lamballe, Marie Antoinette's young and charming friend, had filled everyone in England with unspeakable horror. The daily executions of scores of royalists of good family, whose only sin was their aristocratic name, seemed to cry for vengeance to the whole of civilized Europe. Yet with all that, no one dared to interfere. Burke had exhausted all his eloquence in trying to induce the British government to fight the revolutionary government of France. But Mr. Pitt, with characteristic prudence, did not feel that this country was yet to embark on another arduous and costly war. It was for Austria to take the initiative. Austria, whose fairest daughter was even now a dethroned queen, imprisoned and insulted by a howling mob. And surely 'twas not, so argued Mr. Fox, for the whole of England to take up arms because one set of Frenchmen chose to murder another. As for Mr. Jellyband and his fellow John Bulls, though they looked upon all foreigners with withering contempt, they were royalists and anti-revolutionists to a man, and at this present moment were furious with Pitt for his caution and moderation, although they naturally understood nothing of the diplomatic reasons which guided that great man's policy. But now Sally came running back, very excited and very eager. The joyous company in the coffee room had heard nothing of the noise outside, but she had spied a dripping horse and a rider who had stopped at the door of the Fisherman's Rest. And while the stable boy ran forward to take charge of the horse, pretty Miss Sally went to the front door to greet the welcome visitor. I think I see my Lord Antony's horse out in the yard, father, she said as she ran across the coffee room. But already the door had been thrown open from the outside, and the next moment an arm, covered in drab cloth and dripping with heavy rain, was round Sally's waist, while a hearty voice echoed along the polished rafters of the coffee room. "Aye, and bless your brown eyes for being so sharp, my pretty Sally," said the man who had just entered, whilst worthy Mr. Jellyband came bustling forward, eager, alert, and fussy, as became the advent of one of the most favourable guests of his hostel. "Lud, I protested, Sally," added Lord Antony as he deposited a kiss on Miss Sally's blooming cheek. "But you are growing prettier and prettier every time I see you, and my honest friend Jellyband here must have had hard work to keep the fellows off that slim waist of yours. What say you, Mr. Waite?" Mr. Waite, torn between his respects for my lord and his dislike of that particular type of joke, only replied with a doubtful grunt. Lord Antony Dewhurst, one of the sons of the Duke, was in those days a very perfect type of young Englishman, a young English gentleman, tall, well set up, broad of shoulders, and merry of face. His laughter rang loudly wherever he went. A good sportsman, a lively companion, a courteous, well-bred man of the world, and not too much brains to spoil his temper. He was a universal favourite in London's drawing-rooms or the coffee-rooms of the village inns at the Fisherman's Rest. Everyone knew him, for he was fond of a trip across to France and always spent a night under worthy Mr. Jellyband's roof on his way there or back. He nodded to Waite, Pickens, and the others as he last released Sally's waist and crossed over to the hearth to warm himself dry. And as he did so, he cast a quick, somewhat suspicious glance at the two strangers, who had quietly resumed their game of dominoes, and for a moment a look of deep earnestness, even of anxiety, clouded his jovial young face. But only for a moment. The next he had turned to Mr. Hempstead, who was respectfully chutting his forelock. "Well, Mr. Hempstead, and how is the fruit?" "Badly, my lord, badly," replied Mr. Hempstead. "Dolefully. But what can you expect with this your government favouring them rascals over in France, who would murder their king and all their nobility?" "Odds life," retorted Antony. "So they would, honest Hempstead. At least those they can get a hold of, worse luck. But we have got some friends coming here tonight, who at any rate have evaded their clutches." It almost seemed when the young man said these words as if he threw a defiant look toward the quiet strangers in the corner. "Thanks to you, my lord, and to your friends, so I've heard it said," said Mr. Jellyband. In a moment, Lord Antony's hand fell warningly on mine host's arm. "Hush," he said peremptorily, and instinctively, once again, looked toward the strangers. "Oh, Lud love you, they are all right, my lord," retorted Jellyband. "Don't you be afraid. I wouldn't have spoken, only I knew we were among friends. That this gentleman over there is as true and loyal a subject as King George as you are yourself, my lord, saving your presence. He is but lately arrived in Dover, and is settling down in business in these parts." "In business? Faith, then, it must be an undertaker, for I vow I never beheld a more rueful countenance." "Nay, my lord, I believe that gentleman is a widower, which no doubt would account for the melancholy of his bearing. But he is a friend, nevertheless. I'll vouch for that. And you will own, my lord, that who should judge of a face better than the landlord of a popular inn?" "Oh, that's all right, then, if we are among friends," said Lord Antony, who evidently did not care to discuss the subject with his host. "But tell me, you have no one else staying here, have you?" "No one, my lord, and no one's coming either, leastways." "Leastways? No one your lordship would object to, I know." "Who is it?" "Well, my lord, Sir Percy Blakeney and his lady will be here presently, but they ain't a-going to stay." "Lord Blakeney?" queried Lord Antony in some astonishment. "Aye, my lord. Sir Percy Skipper was here just now. He says that my lady's brother is crossing over to France today, in the Daydream, which is Sir Percy's yacht, and Sir Percy and my lady will come with him as far as here to see the last of him. It don't put you out, do it, my lord?" "No, no, it doesn't put me out, my friend. Nothing will ever put me out, unless that supper is not the very best which Miss Sally can cook, and which has ever been served in the Fisherman's Rest." "You need have no fear of that supper, or of that, my lord," said Sally, who all this while had been busy setting the table for supper, and very gay and inviting it looked, with a large bunch of brilliantly colored dahlias in the center, and the bright pewter goblets and blue china about. "How many shall I lay for my lord?" 5 places, pretty Sally. But let the supper be enough for 10 at least. Our friends will be tired, and I hope hungry. As for me, I vow I could demolish a baron of beef tonight." "Here they are, I do believe," said Sally, excitedly, as a distant clatter of horses and wheels could now be distinctly heard, rapidly drawing near. There was general commotion in the coffee room. Everyone was curious to see my Lord Antony's swell friends from over the water. Miss Sally cast 1 or 2 quick glances at the little bit of mirror which hung on the wall, and worthy Mr. Jellyband bustled out in order to give the first welcome himself to his distinguished guests. Only the 2 strangers in the corner did not participate in the general excitement. They were calmly finishing the game of dominoes, and did not even once look toward the door. "Straight ahead, Comtesse, the door on your right," said a pleasant voice outside. "Aye, there they are, all right. All right enough," said Lord Antony joyfully. "Off with you, my pretty Sally, and see how quickly you can dish up the soup." The door was thrown wide open, and preceded by Mr. Jellyband, who was profuse in his elbows and welcome, and his bows and welcomes. A party of 4, 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen, entered the coffee room. "Welcome, welcome to old England," said Lord Antony effusively, as he came eagerly forward with both hands outstretched toward the newcomers. "Ah, you are Lord Anthony Dewhurst, I think," said one of the ladies, speaking with a strong foreign accent. "At your service, madam," he replied, as he ceremoniously kissed the hand of both ladies, then turned to the man and shook them both warmly by the hands. Sally was already helping the ladies to take off their traveling cloaks, and both turned with a shiver toward the brightly blazing hearth. There was a general movement among the company in the coffee room. Sally had bustled off to her kitchen, whilst Jellyband, still profuse with his respectful salutations, arranged 1 or 2 chairs round the fire. Mr. Hempseed, touching his forelock, was quietly vacating the seat in the hearth. Everyone was staring curiously, yet deferentially, at the foreigners. "Ah, messieurs, what can I say?" said the elder of the 2 ladies, as she stretched a pair of fine aristocratic hands to the warmth of the blaze, and looked with unspeakable gratitude first at Lord Antony, then at the young men who had accompanied her party, and who was busy divesting himself of his heavy caped coat. "Only that you are glad to be here in England, Comtesse," replied Lord Antony, "and that you have not suffered too much from your trying voyage." Indeed, we are glad to be in England," she said, while her eyes filled with tears, "and we have already forgotten all that we have suffered." Her voice was musical and low, and there was a great deal of calm dignity, and of many sufferings nobly endured, marked in the handsome aristocratic face, with its wealth of snow-white hair dressed high above the forehead after the fashion of the times. "I hope, my friend, Sir Andrew Ffoulkes proved an entertaining traveling companion, madam." "Ah, indeed. Sir Andrew was kindness itself. How could my children and I ever show enough gratitude to you all, messieurs?" Her companion, a dainty, girlish figure, childlike and pathetic in its look of fatigue and of sorrow, had said nothing as yet. But her eyes, large, brown, and full of tears, looked up from the fire and sought those of Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, who had drawn near to the hearth, and to her. Then, as they met his, which were fixed with unconcealed admiration upon the sweet face before him, a thought of warmer color rushed up to her pale cheeks. "So this is England," she said, as she looked round with a childlike curiosity at the great open hearth, the oak rafters, and the yokels of their elaborate smocks and jovial rubicons. British countenances. A bit of it, mademoiselle, replied Sir Andrew, smiling, but all of it at your service. The young girl blushed again, but this time a bright smile, fleet and sweet, illumined her dainty face. She said nothing, and Sir Andrew was too silent. Yet those two young people understood one another, or as young people have a way of doing all over the world, and have done since the world began. But I say supper. Here broke in Lord Anthony's jovial voice. Supper, honest Jellyband. Where is that pretty wench of yours? And the dish of soup? Zooks, man, while you stand there gaping at the ladies, they will faint with hunger. One moment, my lord, said Jellyband, as he threw open the door that led to the kitchen and shouted lustily, Sally, hey, Sally, there. Are you ready, my girl? Sally was ready, and the next moment she appeared in the doorway, carrying a gigantic tureen, from which rose a cloud of steam and an abundance of savory odor. Odds my life. Supper at last, ejaculated Lord Anthony merrily, as he gallantly offered his arm to Comtesse. May I have the honor, he added ceremoniously as he led her toward the supper table. There was a general bustle in the coffee room. Mr. Hempseed and most of the yokels and fisher folk had gone to make way for the quality, and to finish smoking their pipes elsewhere. Only the two strangers stayed on, quietly and unconcernedly, playing their game of dominoes and sipping their wine, whilst at another table, Harry Waite, who was fast losing his temper, watched pretty Sally bustling round the table. She looked a very dainty picture of English rural life, and no wonder that the susceptible young Frenchman could scarce take his eyes off her pretty face. The Vicomte de Tournay was scarce 19, a beardless boy, on whom the terrible tragedies were being enacted in his own country, had made but little impression. He was elegantly and even foppishly dressed, and once safely landed in England, he was evidently ready to forget the horrors of the Revolution and the delights of English life. Pardi, if this is England, he said as he continued to ogle at Sally with marked satisfaction, I am of it satisfied. It would be impossible at this point to record the exact exclamation which escaped through Mr. Harry Waite's clenched teeth. Only respect for the quality, and notably for my Lord Anthony, kept his marked disapproval of the young foreigner in check. Nay, but this is England, you abandoned young reprobate, interposed Lord Anthony with a laugh. And do not, I pray, bring your loose foreign ways into this most moral country. Lord Anthony had already sat down at the head of the table, with Comtesse on his right. Jellyband was bustling around, filling glasses and putting chairs straight. Sally waited, ready to hand round the soup. Mr. Harry Waite's friends had at last succeeded in taking him out of the room, for his temper was growing more and more violent under the Vicomte's obvious admiration for Sally. Suzanne, came in stern, commanding accents from the rigid Comtesse. Suzanne blushed again. She had lost count of time, and of place, whilst she had stood beside the fire, allowing the handsome young Englishman's eyes to dwell upon her sweet face, and his hand, as if unconsciously to rest upon hers. Her mother's voice brought her back to reality once more with a submissive, yes, Mama. She took her place at the supper table. All right. So I feel like we're getting maybe a little bit more focused in the book, I guess. I think. I don't know. Blakeney. Okay. I don't know. My pronunciations are going to be terrible, so you guys just got to put up with it. My pronunciations are going to be all over the place. I still feel like there hasn't really been anything that's happened. We have these two people, these foreigners that are brought over, and they're just eating dinner. I mean, it's still the beginning of the novel. But I'm curious really what's going to happen. I don't know where this is going. Yeah, political differences are very evident here, and people just don't like each other. Like one guy doesn't like foreigners, another guy doesn't like a foreigner looking at a cute girl at the bar. There's a lot of prejudice. There's a lot of pride. Yeah, Lord Antony seems a little strange. He just comes in, just grabs whatever he wants. Okay, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Sarah. It takes a little while to get into it. It's much easier to read after a few chapters. Okay, excellent. Good. That's what I need. That's the encouragement that I need. That's why you guys are all helping me here. It just is like all over the place right now. Or not necessarily all over the place. I mean, it's like in one place, it's in the Fisherman's Rest. But like lots of character introductions. I mean, not lots, but like there's just lots going on here. I feel like the text is a little distracting. But one more chapter. And was... Okay, so that is September. Okay. Yeah, clues and setup. I feel like that's kind of true. I feel like a lot of this is maybe some clues that I'm not going to quite understand. Maybe like on the second read, I'll be able to piece some of these together. Piece some of these things together. Like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't know where this novel is really going to go. I'm guessing it's just going to be like the Scarlet Pimpernel and his adventures of taking French people out of Paris to England. But I don't know. I don't know if Sally... maybe Sally doesn't mind. Yeah, I guess that's the question. Who is the Scarlet Pimpernel? I hope it's not Anthony. Hansy Anthony. Hey, that's just them. They're banging on the door. Relax. Relax, you little howler. Hey. No. Hey. It's okay. That's just our neighbors. Wes just got a little spooked. I kind of hope we haven't met the Scarlet Pimpernel. I don't love any of these characters that much. Strange. Good boy, buddy. Are you making sure no one's here? Oh, come here. Come here. Come say hi to everyone. Wes, come here. All right, you're gonna just lay down right there. He's gonna just jump in. He's gonna just lay down and enjoy the last chapter. What a cutie. Oh, Kathy, you've never read this? Good, excellent. So you bet that we have. I feel like we have too, but I kind of hope that we haven't. I don't have a good grasp on each of the characters. So let's talk about that before we go on. I actually want to make a note of this. Okay, so because I feel like I'm getting lost in some of the dialogue that's happening, and sometimes I'm missing who is like saying something or saying like, talking. So let's talk about all these characters. Sally. She's kind of like a shy waitress who is Jellyband's daughter. You don't think Sally seems that shy? I feel like she has like maybe a little bit of shyness. Like she's like kind of, well, I think she's like bold, but she just like allows stuff to happen to her. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll probably do that with this book too. I'll probably do the audiobook to some extent. Maybe you just listen to it like as I'm taking walks or something like that. Actually, make me be able to make a note of that. Because I want to reread these 4 chapters that we're going to do just on my own. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm very slow with like getting the setting of a book. I feel like I have to reread the first like 3 or 4 chapters like 5 times before I really feel settled. She's the innkeeper's daughter, yeah, for sure. To these aristocratic types, a commoner. But to the fisherman, she's like, ooh, Ooh, there's good audiobooks on this for YouTube. Excellent. Excellent. So maybe I was wrong. She seems like a normal woman in food service. She doesn't seem shy in like the, oh, stop it, kind of shy. She seems like bold, but also, maybe I meant shy so much as like she's not in command of these conversations. She seems just like to be behind the scenes, like dazzling people with her beauty. So not necessarily shy, just like secondary almost. We have Jelly Band. How would you guys classify Jelly Band? Jelly Band is someone who is boisterous, loud, loves political discussion. Nationalist. Agreeable is a great word. Yeah, Jelly Band feels like a little bit like a Butterbur, I feel like. But maybe a bit more like Butterbur seems more, maybe a little less jolly. I feel like Jelly Band is just very jolly. Hey, Portia, what's up? Yeah, he like plays like he understands politics, but he doesn't really understand politics that much. I like that. He keeps a good homely house. I like that too. Looks after his guests. Yeah, he's a good Jolly Band. Let's call him Jolly Band for now on. I like that. Okay, we have what's the other guy's name? Not Anthony. Hempseed. We have Hempseed. Hempseed is said to be very Is this the guy that's said to be really knowledgeable in the town? Knows scripture? The local Bible expert? Local Bible expert. He seems to have a better opinion than Jelly Band, but gets over spoken by Jelly Band all the time. Hempseed is the Joseph from Wuthering Heights. I feel like he's not that grumpy. I didn't catch him to be that incredibly grumpy. Maybe a little bit grumpy, but not like a Joseph level of grumpy. Yeah, much nicer, not, and much easier to understand. Ooh, yeah, sweet cuttlefish. That's a great idea, or that's a great classification. He wants to appear as wise. If he actually has wisdom, probably not. Who were the four guests that came in? Suzanne, Comtesse, who do we have? Do we know fully their names? Okay, Suzanne, Comtesse, Victome de Tournai, French refugees. Okay, excellent. Now, Sir Andrew Folks. I didn't get a good grasp on this guy. For folks. I'm going to keep saying it's for folks. What is this guy about? He's like welcoming them to England, right? He seems very polite. This is read and find out. But what do we know about him right now at this moment? He's been the most mysterious. He was helping to get them out of England. Is he the Scarlet Pimpernel? Okay, we'll learn more about him in the next chapter. Okay, excellent, good. So we'll hold on to him for a second. And then Antony. Handsy. Confident. He seems to be in control. Maybe not in control, but he appears to be in control. And and Mr. Harry Waite. So Andrew and Suzanne are making eyes at each other. I thought, what about Mr. Harry Waite? Mr. Harry Waite just seems like he's mad that people are looking at each other. He seems like the grump of the bar. Not too much brains to spoil his character for Antony. I like that. Andrew and Suzanne making eyes at each other. Yeah, Harry seems like the local guy. He has a thing for Sally, but he seems a little too... I don't know if he's old. I don't know. He seems old to me. Oh, interesting. Harry was mad the way Antony treated Sally. He was flirting with her before. Okay. He's the one Mr. Jellyband doesn't want to marry Sally. Is he? Harry is mad that people are looking at Sally. He just wants Sally all to himself. How old do you think all these people are? How old do you think Harry is? Harry's a young jackanapes. Yeah, some of the little terms and terminology that we get in this are funny. All right, so that's good. Did we miss any characters? I feel like we kind of got the majority of the characters here. Did we miss anybody? There's just the two people playing... Who are the two people playing dominoes? We just keep getting the two guys that are playing dominoes. Oh, yeah, Pitkin. But Pitkin is like a... Is he like a chef? Like an assistant? I kind of miss what he was doing. Pitkin is another customer. Okay, he's another fisherman. Okay, interesting. I don't know why, but I thought he was like a cook there. Okay, that'll help. That was great, guys. Thank you. I feel like I needed one of those character assessments so I could figure it out. Cecilia, what's up? Yeah, I thought the two domino players were two strangers, right? I thought the two dominoes were just two mysterious domino players. I feel like the Scarlet Pimpernel is one of them. I don't know who the Scarlet Pimpernel is yet, but I'm going to say the Scarlet Pimpernel is everybody. They said they were fellow Englishmen. Okay. Are they? Bebo? They're called strangers. Okay, not suspicious at all of domino players. All right, here we go. Let's keep reading. Let's do chapter 4. We got a good analysis of those characters. I feel like I have a better grasp on them now. Thank you, guys. I'll have to reread this a little bit too. This is chapter 4, the League of the Scarlet Pimpernel. Oh, the League. They all looked merry even a happy party, as they sat round the table. Sir Andrew Ffoulkes and Lord Anthony Dewhurst, two typical good-looking, well-born and well-bred Englishmen of that year of grace 1792, and the aristocratic French Comtesse and her two children, who had just escaped from the direst of peril and found a safe retreat at last on the shores of protecting England. In the corner, the two strangers had apparently finished their game. One of them arose, and standing with his back to the merry company at the table, he adjusted with much deliberation his large triple-caped coat. As he did so, he gave one quick glance all around him. Everyone was busy laughing and chatting, and he murmured the words, "All safe." His companion then, with the alertness born of a long practice, slipped onto his knees in a moment, and the next had crept noiselessly under the oak bench. The stranger then, with a loud good night, quietly walked out of the coffee room. Not one of those at the supper table had noticed this curious and silent maneuver. But when the stranger finally closed the door of the coffee room behind him, they instinctively sighed a sigh of relief. "Alone at last," said Lord Antony jovially. Then the young Vicomte de Tournay rose, glass in hand, and with the graceful affectation peculiar to the times, he raised it aloft and said in broken English, "We got some sirens blaring right now." That's what I read, but it was like the domino guy. This part is confusing me. Did the domino guy go under the table just to leave the room? And then why does Anthony say "alone at last"? The stranger then, with a loud good night, quietly walked out of the coffee room. So one is under the table and one just left? Doesn't seem like the greatest hiding spot. Just sitting under a table. Like, I'm guessing there's maybe some better hiding spot there. And Anthony says we're alone at last. How does he not know that both of them didn't leave? Is Anthony in on it, maybe? All right. To His Majesty George III of England. God bless him for his hospitality to us all, poor exiles from France. His Majesty the King, echoed Lord Antony and Sir Andrew as they drank loyally to the toast. To His Majesty King Louis of France, added Sir Andrew with solemnity. May God protect him and give him victory over his enemies. Everyone rose and drank this toast in silence. The fate of the unfortunate King of France, then a prisoner of his own people, seemed to cast a gloom even over Mr. Jellyband's pleasant countenance. And to M. le Comte de Tournay, de Basserive, said Lord Antony merrily, may we welcome him in England before many days are over. Ah, monsieur, said Comtesse, as with a slightly trembling hand as she conveyed her glass to her lips, I scarcely dare to hope. He doesn't have enough brains to spoil his personality. This seems so like silly to me. It seems like this guy has a big coat and all of a sudden like rustles it away and then walks away, and then everyone thinks, oh, they're gone. We're alone finally. But already Lord Antony had served out of the soup. And for the next few moments, all conversation ceased while Jellyband and Sally handed round the plates and everyone began to eat. Faith, madam, said Lord Antony after a while, mine was no idle toast, seeing yourself, Mademoiselle Suzanne, and my friend, the Vicomte, safely in England. Surely you must feel reassured as to the fate of Monsieur le Comte. Monsieur, replied the Comtesse with a heavy sigh. I trust in God. I can but pray and hope. Aye, madam. Here interposed Sir Andrew Ffoulkes. Trust in God by all means, but believe also in a little of your English friends, who have sworn to bring the Count safely across the Channel, even as they have brought you today. Indeed, monsieur, she replied. I have the fullest confidence in you and in your friends. Your fame, I assure you, has spread throughout the whole of France. The way some of my own friends have escaped from the clutches of that awful revolutionary tribunal was nothing short of a miracle, and all done by you and your friends. We were but the hands, Madame la Comtesse. But my husband, monsieur, said the Comtesse, whilst unshed tears seemed to veil her voice. He is in such deadly peril I would never have left him, only there were my children. I was torn between my duty to him and to them. They refused to go without me. And you and your friends assured me so solemnly that my husband would be safe. But oh, now that I am here, amongst you all, in this beautiful free England, I think of him, flying for his life, hunted like a poor beast in such peril. Ah, I should not have left him. The poor woman had completely broken down. Fatigue, sorrow, and emotions had overmastered her rigid aristocratic bearing. She was crying gently to herself, while Suzanne ran up to her and tried to kiss away her tears. Lord Antony and Sir Andrew said nothing to interrupt the Comtesse while she was speaking. There was no doubt that they felt deeply for her. Their very silence testified to that. But in every century, and since England had been what it is, an Englishman has always felt somewhat ashamed of his own emotion and of his own sympathy. And so the two young men said nothing and busied themselves in trying to hide their feelings, only succeeding in looking immeasurably sheepish. As for me, monsieur, said Suzanne, suddenly as she looked through the wealth of the brown curls at Sir Andrew, I trust you absolutely and know that you will bring my dear father safely to England, just as you brought us today. This was said with so much confidence she unuttered hope and belief that it seemed as if by magic to dry the mother's eyes and to bring a smile upon everybody's lips. Nay, shame me, mademoiselle, replied Sir Andrew. Though my life is at your service, I have been but a humble tool in the hands of our great leader who organized and effected your escape. He had spoken with so much warmth and vehemence that Suzanne's eyes fastened upon him in undisguised wonder. Your leader, monsieur, said the Comtesse eagerly. Ah, of course, you must have a leader. And I did not think of that before, but tell me, where is he? I must go to him at once. And I and my children must throw ourselves at his feet and thank him for all that he has done for us. Okay, quick note. I feel like the Dominoes players are Frenchmen, and this lady is faking it. And she's going into this hoping that they're going to uncover the identity of the Scarlet Pimpernel. And these two guys are going to go, we gotcha, and kill him. Yeah, let's speak about big secrets in an inn, for sure. That's just my guess right now. We'll see. Alas, madame, said Lord Antony, that is impossible. Impossible? Why? Because the Scarlet Pimpernel works in the dark, and his identity is only known under a solemn oath of secrecy to his immediate followers. The Scarlet Pimpernel, said Susan with a merry laugh. Why, what a droll name. What is the Scarlet Pimpernel, monsieur? She looked at Sir Andrew with eager curiosity. The young man's face had become almost transfigured. His eyes shone with enthusiasm. Hero worship, love, admiration for his leader seemed literally to glow upon his face. The Scarlet Pimpernel, mademoiselle, he said at last, is the name of a humblish English wayside flower. But it is also the name chosen to hide the identity of the best and bravest man in all the world, so that he may better succeed in accomplishing the noble task he has set himself to do. Ah, yes, here interposed the young Vicomte. I have heard speak of this Scarlet Pimpernel. A little flower, red, yes? They say in Paris that every time a royalty escapes to England, that devil, Sieur Tinville, the public prosecutor, receives a paper with that little flower designated in red upon it. Yes? Yes, that is so, assented Lord Antony. Then he will have received one such paper today. Undoubtedly. Oh, I wonder what he will say, said Suzanne merrily. I have heard the picture of that little red flower is the only thing that frightens him. Faith, then, said Sir Andrew. He will have many more opportunities of studying the shape of that small scarlet flower. Ah, monsieur, said the Comtesse. It all sounds like a romance, and I cannot understand it all. Why should you try, madame? But tell me, why should your leader, why should you all spend money and risk your lives? For it is your lives you risk, messieurs, when you set foot in France, and all for us Frenchmen and women, who are nothing to you. It's a good question. Sport, Madame la Comtesse, sport, asserted Lord Anthony with his jovial, loud, and pleasant voice. We are a nation of sportsmen, you know. And just now it is the fashion to pull the hair from beneath the teeth of the hound. Ah, no, not sport only, monsieur. You have a more noble motive, I am sure, for the good work you do. Faith, madame, I would like you to find it then. As for me, I vow I love the game. This is the finest sport I have yet encountered. Hair-breadth escapes, the devil's own risks, tally-ho, and away we go. But the Comtesse shook her head still incredulously. To her it seemed preposterous that these young men and these great leaders, all of them rich, probably well-born and young, should, for no other motive than sport, run the terrible risk which she knew they were constantly doing. Their nationality, once they had set foot in France, would be no safeguard to them. Anyone found harboring or assisting suspected royalists would be ruthlessly condemned and summarily executed, whatever his nationality might be. And this band of young Englishmen had, to her own knowledge, bearded the implacable and bloodthirsty tribunal of the Revolution within the very walls of Paris itself, and had snatched away condemned victims almost from the very foot of the guillotine. With a shudder, she recalled the events of the last few days. Her escape from Paris, with her 2 children and all 3 of them hidden beneath the hood of a rickety cart, and lying amidst the heap of turnips and cabbages, not daring to breathe, whilst the mob howled, "À la lanterne les aristos," at that awful west barricade. It had all occurred in such a miraculous way. She and her husband had understood that they were placed on the list of suspected persons, which meant that their trial and death were but a matter of days, of hours perhaps. Then came the hope of salvation, the mysterious epistle, signed with an enigmatic scarlet device, the clear peremptory directions, the parting from the Comte de Tournay, which had torn the poor wife's heart in 2, the hope of reunion, the flight with her 2 children, the covered cart, that awful hag driving it, who looked like some horrible evil demon with the ghastly trophy on her whip handle. The Comtesse looked round at the quaint old-fashioned, the ghastly trophy on her whip handle. Interesting. The Comtesse looked round at the quaint old-fashioned English inn, the peace of this land of civil and religious liberty, as she closed her eyes to shut out the haunting vision of that west barricade, and of the mob retreating panic-stricken when the old hag spoke of the plague. Every moment under the cart she expected recognition, arrest, herself and her children tried and condemned, and these young Englishmen, under the guidance of their brave and mysterious leader, had risked their lives to save them all, as had already saved scores of other innocent people. And all only for sport. Impossible. Suzanne's eyes, as she saw those of Sir Andrew, plainly told him that she thought that he, at any rate, rescued his fellow men from the terrible and unmerited death, though a higher and nobler motive than his friend would have had her believe. "How many are there in your brave league, monsieur?" she asked timidly. "20 all told, mademoiselle," he replied. "1 to command and 19 to obey. All of us Englishmen, and all pledged to the same cause, to obey our leader and to rescue the innocent." "May God protect you all, messieurs," said the Comtesse fervently. "He has done that so far, madame. It is wonderful to me, wonderful, that you should all be so brave, so devoted to your fellow men. Yet you are English, and in France treachery is rife, all in the name of liberty and fraternity. The women, even in France, have been more bitter against us aristocrats than the men," said the Vicomte with a sigh. "Ah, yes," added the Comtesse, whilst a look of haughty disdain and intense bitterness shot through her melancholy eyes. "There was that woman, Marguerite Saint Just, for instance. She denounced the Marquis de Saint Cyr and his family to the awful tribunal of the Terror. Marguerite St. Just, the Lord Antony, as he shot a quick and apprehensive glance across at Sir Andrew. Marguerite St. Just, surely. Yes, replied the Comtesse. Surely you know her. She was a leading actress of the Comédie Française, and she married an Englishman lately. You must know her. Know her, said Lord Antony. Know Lady Blakeney? The most fashionable woman in London? The wife of the richest man in England? Of course we know Lady Blakeney. She was a schoolfellow of mine at the convent in Paris, interposed Suzanne, and we came over to England together to learn your language. I was very fond of Marguerite. I cannot believe that she ever did anything so wicked. Wow. It certainly seems incredible, said Sir Andrew. You say that she actually denounced Marquis de Saint Cyr. Why should she have done such a thing? Surely there must be some mistake. No mistake is possible, monsieur, rejoined the Comtesse coldly. Marguerite St. Just's brother is a noted Republican. There was some talk of a family feud between him and my cousin, the Marquis de Saint Cyr. The Justs are quite plebeian, and the Republican government employs many spies. I assure you there is no mistake. You had not heard this story. Faith, madam, I did hear vague rumors of it, but in England no one would credit it. Sir Percy Blakeney, her husband, is a very wealthy man of high social position, the intimate friend of the Prince of Wales, and Lady Blakeney leads both fashion and society in London. That may be, monsieur, and we shall, of course, lead a very quiet life in England, but I pray God that while I remain in this beautiful country, I may never meet Marguerite St. Just. The proverbial wet blanket seemed to have fallen over the little merry company gathered round the table. Suzanne looked sad and silent. Sir Andrew fidgeted uneasily with his fork, whilst the Comtesse, encased in the plate armor of her aristocratic prejudices, sat rigid and unbending in her straight back chair. As for Lord Antony, he looked extremely uncomfortable and glanced once or twice apprehensively toward Jellyband, who looked just as uncomfortable as himself. At what time do you expect Sir Percy and Lord Blakeney? He contrived to whisper unobserved to mine host. Any moment, my lord, whispered Jellyband in reply. Even as he spoke, a distant clatter was heard in an approaching coach. Louder and louder it grew. One or two shouts became indistinguishable. Then a rattle of horse hooves on the uneven cobblestones, and the next moment a stable boy had thrown open the coffee-room door and rushed in excitedly. Sir Percy Blakeney and my lady, he shouted at the top of his voice. They're just arriving. And with more shouting, jingles of harnesses, and iron hoofs upon the stones, a magnificent coach drawn by 4 superb bays had halted outside the porch of the Fisherman's Rest. Dun dun dun. Want to do one more chapter? It's a pretty short chapter, so I feel like we should do just one more chapter. I'm going to do one more chapter. I convinced myself of that really easily. I feel like we have to do one more chapter. Yeah, horse carriage. It seems expensive. A chase in 4, or a chassis in 4, or whatever it is, in Pride and Prejudice. An important character arrives in chapter 5. Excellent. Okay, so we'll get to chapter 5. We'll talk about chapter 5. I think people here are going to disagree with me on this assessment. I feel like chapters 1 through 3 are not a good introduction to this book. Chapter 4 was great. I guess there has to be some kind of like longer introduction to some of these works. But I did not find them that intriguing, chapters 1 through 3. Chapter 4 actually had me in some kind of story. It had me gripped a little bit. Like, it was more interesting. Like, there was these kind of moments in chapter 4. There was those moments in chapter 4. I don't think you need 1 and 3. I think maybe you do a little bit, but I think you needed those abbreviated. I wouldn't have minded if those were just more abbreviated. I don't. I have to say, and I'm comparing this to everything else that I'm reading at the moment, and maybe this is just an overload of characters. So maybe this is just like me. I felt like it was just an overload of characters. Like you can't really get to know some of these people in that quick of a time. I'd rather have my characters introduced a little bit slower. Yeah, I feel like you're kind of right. Some of these older books do seem a bit slower paced for like at least just the very setting of the books. Um, yeah, it's true too. It is a short book, so I'll give you that. There are a lot of unimportant characters. Another thing too is the chase and fort. I'm reading a Game of Thrones, and Robert Baratheon and his family arrive in this huge, like I think it was said an oaken carriage, and it was pulled by 40 horses. That blew me away. That's crazy. Dickens was paid by chapters, but are they good fillers or are they just like boring fillers? Yeah, it said 40. I thought I misread that and I kept reading it. I was like, I feel like this is pulled by 40 horses. Like, that's insane. Yeah. Let me actually find that because it's right here. It is. Yeah, here we go. The wheelhouse in which they had ridden, a huge double-decked carriage of oiled oak and gilded metal pulled by 40 heavy draft horses. Like, that's crazy. That's nuts. I like some atmosphere, but I don't like too much. Like, I love like side chapters, but I do want to get into the story a little bit quicker sometimes. It's a lot of horse poo. That's true. It's a lot of horse poo. Does seem unpractical. Maybe it was a huge carriage. All right, let's read chapter 5. Let's meet Marguerite. All right. In a moment, the pleasant oak raftered coffee room in the inn became the scene of hopeless confusion and discomfort. At the first announcement made by the stable boy, Lord Antony, with a fashionable oath, had jumped up from his seat and was now giving many a confused directions to poor bewildered Jellyband, who seemed at his wits' end what to do. For goodness sake, man, admonished his lordship, try to keep Lady Blackney outside, talking outside for a moment while the ladies withdraw. Zounds, he added with another more emphatic oath. This is most unfortunate. Quick, Sally, the candle, shouted Jellyband. As hopping about from one leg to another, he ran hither and thither, adding to the general discomfort of everybody. The Comtesse, too, had risen to her feet, rigid and erect, trying to hide her excitement beneath her more becoming sang-froid. She repeated mechanically, I will not see her, I will not see her. Outside, the excitement attendant upon the arrival of very important guests grew apace. Good day, Sir Percy. Good day to your ladyship, your servant, Sir Percy, was heard in one long continued chorus with alternate, more feeble tones of remember the poor blind man, of your charity, lady and gentlemen. Then suddenly a singularly sweet voice was heard through all the din. Let the poor man be, and give him some supper at my expense. The voice was low and musical, and with a slight sing-song in it, and a faint soupçon of foreign intonation and in the pronunciation of the consonants. Everyone in the coffee room heard it and paused, instinctively listening to it for a moment. Sally was holding the candles by the opposite door, which led to the bedroom upstairs, and the Comtesse was in the act of beating the hasty retreat before that enemy, who owned such a sweet musical voice. Suzanne reluctantly was preparing to follow her mother, whilst casting regretful glances towards the door where she hoped to see her dearly beloved erstwhile schoolfellow. Then Jellyband threw open the door, still stupidly and blindly hoping to avert the catastrophe, which he felt was in the air, and the same low, musical voice said, with a merry laugh and mock consternation, I'm as wet as a herring. Has anyone seen such contemptible climate? Suzanne, come with me at once, I wish it, said the Comtesse peremptorily. Oh, Mamma, pleaded Suzanne. My lady, came in feeble accents from Jellyband, who stood clumsily trying to bar the way. Pardon, my good man, said Lord Blakeney with some impatience. Said Lady Blakeney with some impatience. What are you standing in my way for, dancing about like a turkey with a sore foot? Let me get to the fire. I am perished with the cold. In the next moment, Lady Blakeney gently pushed mine host on one side, had swept into the coffee room. There are many portraits and miniatures extant of Marguerite St. Just, Lady Blakeney, as she was then, but it is doubtful if any of these really do her singular beauty justice. Tall, above the average, with magnificent presence and regal figure. It is a small wonder that even the Comtesse paused for a moment in involuntary admiration before turning her back on so fascinating an apparition. Marguerite Blakeney was then scarcely 25, and her beauty was at its most dazzling stage. The large hat, with its undulating and waving plumes, threw a soft shadow across the classic brow, with the areola of auburn hair. The aureole? Probably not the areola. Of auburn hair. Free at the moment from any powder. The sweet, almost childlike mouth, the straight chiseled nose, round chin, and delicate throat all seemed set off by the picturesque costume of the period. The rich blue velvet robe, molded in its every line at the graceful contour of the figure, whilst one tiny hand held, with all its dignity of its own, the tall stick adorned with a large bunch of ribbons which fashionable ladies in this period had taken to carrying recently. With a quick glance around the room, Marguerite Blakeney had taken stock of everyone there. She nodded pleasantly to Sir Andrew Ffoulkes while extending a hand to Lord Anthony. Hello, my Lord Tony. Why, what are you doing here in Dover? She said merrily. Then, without waiting for a reply, she turned and faced the Comtesse and Suzanne, her whole face lighted up with additional brightness, as she stretched out both arms toward the young girl. Why, if that isn't my little Suzanne over there. Pardon, little citizeness. How came you to be in England? And Madame, too. She went up effusively to them both, not with a single touch of embarrassment in her manner or in her smile. Lord Tony and Sir Andrew watched the little scene with eager apprehension. English though they were, they had often been in France and had mixed sufficiently with the French to realize that unbending hauteur, the bitter hatred of which the old noblesse of France viewed all those who had helped to contribute to their downfall. Armand St. Just, the brother of beautiful Lady Blakeney, though known to hold moderate and conciliatory views, was an ardent Republican. His feud with the ancient family of St. Cyr, the rights and wrongs of which no outsider ever knew, had culminated in the total extinction of the latter, the almost total extinction of the latter. In France, St. Just and his party had triumphed, and here in England, face to face with these three refugees driven from their country, flying for their lives, bereft of all which centuries of luxury had given them, there stood a fair scion of the same Republican families which had hurled down a throne and uprooted an aristocracy whose origin was lost in the dim and distant vista of bygone centuries. She stood there before them, in all the unconscious insolence of beauty, and stretched out her dainty hand to them, as if she would, by that one act, bridge over the conflict of bloodshed of the past decade. Suzanne, I forbid you to speak to that woman, said the Comtesse sternly as she placed a restraining hand upon her daughter's arm. She had spoken in English, so that all might hear and understand, the two young English gentlemen as well as the common innkeeper and her daughter. The latter literally gasped with horror at this foreign insolence this impudence before her ladyship, who was English. Now that she was Sir Percy's wife, a friend of the Princess of Wales to boot. As for Lord Antony and Sir Andrew Ffoulkes, their very hearts seemed to stand still with horror at this gratuitous insult. One of them uttered an exclamation of appeal, and the other of warning, and instinctively both glanced hurriedly toward the door, where a slow, drawly, not unpleasant voice had already been heard. Alone among the present, Marguerite Blakeney and the Comtesse de Tournay had remained seemingly unmoved, the latter rigid, erect, and defiant, with one hand still upon the daughter's arm, seemed the very personification of unbending pride. For the moment, Marguerite's sweet face had become as white as soft fichu, which swathed her throat. And a very keen observer might have noted that the hand which held the tall bee-ribbon stick was clenched and trembled somewhat. But this was only momentary. The next instant, the delicate eyebrows were raised slightly. The lips curved sarcastically upward. The clear blue eyes looked straight at the rigid Comtesse, and with a slight shrug of the shoulders. "Hoity-toity, citizeness," she said gaily. "What fly stings you, pray?" We are in England now, madame, rejoined the Comtesse coldly, "and I am at liberty to forbid my daughter to touch your hand in friendship. Come, Suzanne." She beckoned to her daughter, and without another look at Marguerite Blakeney, but with a deep, old-fashioned courtesy, the two young men, she sailed majestically out of the room. There was silence in the old inn parlor for a moment, as the rustle of the Comtesse's skirts died away down the passage. Marguerite, rigid as a statue, followed with hard, set eyes upon the upright figure as it disappeared through the doorway. But as little Suzanne, humble and obedient, was about to follow her mother, the hard, set expression suddenly vanished, and a wistful, almost pathetic and childlike look stole into Lady Blakeney's eyes. Little Suzanne caught that look. The child's sweet nature went out to the beautiful woman, scarce older than herself. Filial obedience vanished before girlish sympathy. At the door she turned, ran back to Marguerite, and putting her arms round her, kissed her effusively. Then only did she follow her mother, Sally bringing up the rear, with a pleasant smile on her dimpled face, and with a final courtesy to my lady. Suzanne's sweet and dainty impulse had relieved the unpleasant tension. Sir Andrew's eyes followed the pretty little figure, until it had quite disappeared. Then they met Lady Blakeney with unassumed merit. Marguerite, with dainty affectation, had kissed her hand to the ladies, and they disappeared through the door with a humorous smile, began hovering around the corners of her mouth. "So that's it, is it?" she said gaily. "La, Sir Andrew, did you ever see such an unpleasant person? I hope when I grow old I shan't look like that." She gathered up her skirts, and assuming a majestic gait, stalked toward the fireplace. "Suzanne," she said, mimicking the Comtesse's voice, "I forbid you to speak to that woman." The laugh which accompanied this sally sounded perhaps a trifle forced and hard, but neither Sir Andrew nor Lord Tony were very keen observers. The mimicry was so perfect, the tone of voice so accurately reproduced, that both the young men joined in a hearty, cheerful bravo. "Ah, Lady Blakeney," added Lord Tony, "how they must miss you at the Comédie Française. How the Parisians must hate Sir Percy for having taken you away." "Lud, man," rejoined Marguerite with a shrug of her graceful shoulders, "'tis impossible to hate Sir Percy for anything. His witty sallies would disarm even Madame la Comtesse herself." The young Vicomte, who had not elected to follow his mother in her dignified exit, now made a step forward, ready to champion the Comtesse should Lady Blakeney aim any further shafts at her. But before he could utter a preliminary word of protest, a pleasant, though distinctly inane laugh was heard from outside, and the next moment an unusually tall and very richly dressed figure appeared in the doorway. I feel like every chapter is going to be a cliffhanger at the end. Another person shows up. Oh, Fichu is a fine scarf. Okay, excellent. All right, so I'm not that into this book yet, but I think I'm slowly maybe getting into it. There's not that much to discuss, to be completely honest, in this one. I feel like I have like 2 videos that I'll make of this. But I don't know. I'm not. It's not like the most. It's not the most scintillating story yet for me. I feel like we'll get there eventually. But I do think that every chapter is going to end at some kind of cliffhanger, though. I feel like every chapter is going to be like dun dun dun. Yeah, it's just exposition, which is fine. And I mean, it's like setting the story, but I'm sure when we get into the story, I think I'm going to enjoy it. But it's just like too much for me. Yeah, we need some more Princess Donut in this, that's for sure. At least Wuthering Heights gave you discomfort. That's for sure. After the first three chapters, almost all are cliffhangers. It's like a fun bedtime story. I feel like this is well, I mean, after the beheadings, of course, could be a fun bedtime story. Yeah, it's a good point. Readers needing more patience in these days. Yeah, I mean, if you set a okay, so I'll talk about I think there's a difference too between setting a scene really well and just like being too wordy. Like as an editor, I would chop the first three chapters and make them one short chapter. The first chapter does set the scene well. That's like a little bit of a prologue. Yeah, that was the Tourneys out of Paris. Yeah, in chapter 1. Yeah, I definitely caught that. I do think chapter 1 is probably important, but I would maybe synthesize chapter 2 and 3 into a short chapter. I feel like a lot of that was. I mean, like I'm all for non-necessary forays and like little like rabbit trails, but some of that was just weird to me. I don't know. I gotta think about that more. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of with you a little bit, Jen. I feel like at the moment this is maybe a little bit bland for me, but again, I don't think we're really into the story yet. I think when the actual story pops up, I think I'm going to be really into this. And that's Ruth. I think you nailed it too. I think at the moment, I think all this stuff is unnecessary, but it could be, really, really important to the plot. But you just don't know until you finish, which is why halfway through reading some of the intros, I was like, this stuff feels like it's going to be important on a second read, but right now it's all just going over my head. It feels a little mysterious, and I think mystery writing is hard to do and catch your interest and not feel like you're tripping on every little thing that you're reading. Yeah, Wuthering Heights definitely draws you in. Yeah, I will say the language of that draws you in. I think you're kind of keyed in from the beginning of that novel. I think the writing of that is much better than this novel. The writing of this is good. It's not, or it's just different. I don't know if it's good yet. We'll make that judgment when we finish. At the moment, though, I think Bronte's writing is better. Yeah, it doesn't have like really gorgeous prose. Interesting. You struggle with your first read. Yeah, I'm glad that I have you guys. I think if I didn't have you guys, I probably would struggle with my first read. But again, I think when the actual plot is kind of jumping up, I think I'll probably like this a bit more. But right now, It's not like it's not earth shattering. It is like a little bit of a fun book, but we'll see. We'll see as we keep reading. So we'll probably jump in maybe like Thursday or like a Friday and do maybe 5 more chapters or so. We'll just kind of plow our way through this book. Maybe finish by the end of March. I feel like this would be a pretty easy one to finish in like 3-ish weeks. Yeah. Also, yeah, when you're reading and when you're not reading out loud, this was a terrible reading. I did not do a great job. Some of these, and it is interesting too. I will say, reading out loud matters. Like, the sentence structure and I feel like how you know, not necessarily a good writer from a bad writer because it's a totally different thing, but reading in your head versus reading out loud, I think you catch some weird things when you're reading out loud. And Emily Bronte's there were some tough things to read out loud, but when you get into a rhythm of it, it makes sense. The same thing is true, even more so with Jane Austen. Her sentence structure is just delicious. It's long, but how she actually structures a sentence. Like this Baroness Orczy structures her sentences long, and to me they're harder to follow, but maybe I just haven't read this enough. With Jane Austen, her sentences are long, but there's so much lilt and flow to them. It's just like, it's like you're taking a journey on every sentence. It's just so fun. Jay, you don't have to necessarily. I think if we come across a word that I really don't know, then we'll just kind of chat about it here. I don't want you to put that work into it if I'm not going to use it that much. I feel like there's not too many things that I won't just flat out know. Maybe if you're reading like ahead of me or anything like that, if you catch anything, just throw it in the Discord and I'll try to catch it. It does, yeah. 1905 feels a little less hard. Yeah, definitely going to read a play. That'd be really fun. 100% going to read a play. I don't know when, but maybe like the end of the summer or something like that. We'll do like a short play, like an in between. I don't know what, but we'll read a play. That'd be fun. But yeah, writing is just interesting here. It's not like the most intriguing bit of writing that I've ever encountered. But I think it's just gonna be a fun story. So we'll keep plowing along. We'll keep reading, and we'll take it from there. I think yes and no, that every author should experiment with prose. Yeah, you should be experimental in some of what you're doing, but if you're too experimental, you come up with like postmodernist writers like Jennifer Egan. And has anybody read like A Visit from the Goon Squad? The prose in that book is atrocious. I hate it more than anything. Sometimes experimentation is just experimentation for its own sake. Like you should have fun with language, I think. Not necessarily experiment with language. Like I think J.R. Tolkien has fun with language. I think Jane Austen is having fun with language. And you can tell because there's experimentation in their language that is more enjoyable to me than like just the postmodernist writers just flat out experimenting with writers or with writing. No Country for Old Men just doesn't have punctuation. Oh yeah. It's brutal. Like that kind of experimentation to me is dumb. Like abide by the rules, experiment with certain things. Don't delete punctuation. We need that stuff, you know? So, I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. I got to think about that more. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off. I'm going to get some work done. It was a pleasure. Another read probably Thursday or Friday. I'll let you guys know on the Discord and I'll schedule it. So, yeah, I'll let you guys know. But for now, I will see you guys in the next one, and I'll come out with like a video or two talk about what we just kind of read. I feel like I need to re-listen, or I need to like get an audiobook and listen to this one or something like that. So I'll probably do that on my own time. But I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Have a good night. Have a good day. It's beautiful out, so I might go out for a little walk because it's so nice out. All right, guys. I'll see you later.